Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has just issued a dangerous warning to NATO and the United States. They are not fooling around. We probably should stop fooling around. They said they will lower the bar for nuclear war and consider any strike to them as a justification for a nuclear response. So it's not that if we go nuclear, they will too. They are saying any attack will warrant a nuclear attack. Maybe we want to pay attention to this. But Russia has been being attacked by Ukraine for many months, in the last 6 months, at least several times. So how are we going to know what is the straw that breaks the camel's back? Here is specifically what Putin said about it. He said he will update Russia's nuclear doctrine to clearly define circumstances that would prompt Moscow to launch a nuclear strike. This would even include attacks on them by non-nuclear states like Ukraine. So he also said aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state supported by a nuclear power should be treated as their joint attack. So we arm Ukraine. We are a nuclear power. We allow Ukraine. We attack through Ukraine. They consider that an attack by the United States. So, okay, Ukraine is not a NATO state, but it is supported by NATO. So that's not just the United States supporting Ukraine, that's also all NATO states. So what he's saying is that he will hold those responsible who support Ukraine for what Ukraine does.
Well, and I'm glad that Putin is a little bit more patient than we usually are, because in 2014, when he started doing what he was doing, or when Ukraine started doing what they were doing to the Donbass, he warned us for 8 years what he was going to do.
Yes.
He told us, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And we kept moving the line. And it's like we haven't given him much of a choice, but he has still shown a lot of patience in even what's going on now.
Yes.
With what he could have done.
Yes, indeed. So considering how many attacks Russia has already had, not just in their new borders, which is the contested region, but inside their long existing borders, they've tolerated this for a long time, but for how much more? But can we, I mean, you and I can't, but can our politicians stop Ukraine from doing this? Recall President Biden promised that he has Zelensky on a leash, but President Biden is on Mars. So who's leashing the dog? So if we look to the state of the world today, you can see that Ukraine is not even fighting for the contested territory. They are all up in Russian borders. So the territory you see here that is red and dark gray, that's the contested region. They were Ukraine until late 2022. Now the red is part of Russia. The dark gray is what Russia says they intend to liberate still. I say liberate because Ukraine began bombing and torturing those regions in 2014 when the U.S. fomented a coup and allowed extremists to attack ethnic Russians and Russian supporters in those regions. When Ukraine stepped up those attacks under the Biden-Harris administration, those regions petitioned Russia to come in and stop, and Russian parliament voted to do so. It was not, as they tell us, an unprovoked attack by Putin himself. Now, Zelensky's victory plan calls for Ukraine to get that territory back, which is a pipe dream, and they want Russia to retreat. But the blue dots that you see here is where the Ukrainian military is currently fighting. Why are they not trying to get that contested region back? Why are they not there?
This is not an offensive map. This is a defensive map. That's an offensive map.
Clearly, that's an offensive map. They're not pushing back where Russia is inside their territory. There are like 4 dots there. All of their military, I mean, in their defense, if I was a member of the Ukrainian military, I probably would dig a hole and hide, right? But if they go on that territory, they get killed because Russia is able to hold the line. So I would run far away from that line too. But what they're doing is just provoking the bear, because the rest of that territory north, that's all Russia. So they provoke there. We are held responsible. You see how that looks?
Well, and they've been saying,
how scary that is?
They've been saying this whole time, like, we're just trying to defend ourselves from Russia. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what is the plan? Is the plan to go in and take over now part of Russia? Like, are they thinking they're going to, that bombing into Russia where they are now is going to take back the map that they're not even defending? Like, that makes zero sense.
It doesn't make sense.
If it's defensive, you don't win a siege if you're being besieged. Like it's just you
Right.
just wait out the clock and hope somebody comes up behind you to take out the seizures. You
Right.
can't win from a defensive position like that.
Right. They're not even trying to win. They're just trying to keep the war going to keep Ukraine on the international stage so Zelensky stays famous. I mean, I don't understand why Zelensky would do this if he cared about Ukrainian people. My only answer is that he must be so hyped up on cocaine that he can't care about anybody but himself. I mean, it literally is the Hunger Games. I say this all the time and I will say it again. You have to be on drugs to make yourself not care about all this death and suffering. But we're not on drugs and we still care about the death and suffering. So we're going to tell the truth about the war. Now, these are the attacks that Russia says it will no longer tolerate. And there is no one in charge to tell the U.S., to tell Ukraine to knock it off for all of our sakes. Now, quite the contrary, President Biden, because Zelensky's beggar tour was so fruitful, announced that he has found $5.5 billion more in support for Ukraine. Now, never mind that we just had to pass an emergency bill to fund our own government or else it would have shut down. We found more money for Ukraine. And guess what we found inside of there? Here's exactly what the White House says they're going to send to Ukraine: long-range missiles, which is exactly what they said they wouldn't send. Guess what else they're going to send is pilots. He says to build Ukraine's capacity for an air force, which they don't have. I will direct the the Department of Defense, to expand training for these pilots. Who trains pilots? Pilots. So, okay, long-range weapons and pilots are exactly what Biden said they wouldn't send, but he's clearly not in charge. When he was in charge, this is what he said he would not do.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III. Okay?
Okay. He said no pilots and no long-range weapons. But today the press release says pilots and long-range weapons.
But only 18 pilots? You're sending 18 pilots to go up against the whole Russian army? Like, what is that even going to do?
Wait, where does it say 18 pilots?
Yeah, it says 18.
Oh, yeah, it does say 18 pilots. I got the 16 and the 8.
So it's like you're going to send 18 pilots, unexperienced pilots, against the Russian Air Force? Like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. They only get 18.
In a year. It's
right.
saying, like,
but we don't know how many of our pilots will train those pilots. And we've been playing this stupid game where we're like, if we train them in Germany, it doesn't count, right?
Right. Or Poland or whatever.
Yeah. I don't think, it doesn't seem, I mean, we're reading between the lines. It doesn't seem like they're going to do that to expand training for these pilots, including by supporting the training of those pilots. Okay, where? And does it matter? Because Russia is like, we're not playing this dumb game. This is the same game as like my kids, where I'm like, I'm not touching you.
Yeah,
I'm not touching you.
Stop touching,
right?
like Bart Simpson.
I'm not touching you. That's what we're doing.
If you're supporting pilots, if you're training pilots, and our money is going in to pay those pilots, are they not by proxy at that point U.S. soldiers? They're getting paid by us.
Yeah, it would seem. It would seem. Okay, so either President Biden or his clone said we wouldn't do those things, and now we have a press release saying we're doing those things. Does anyone want to ask anyone who's in charge to explain this? I very much would like an answer from Kamala Harris about this. So I guess we'll march towards nuclear warfare with no one to check us or ask or stop it, I guess. The sad thing is, just like every other conflict we've been through in the last at least 3 decades, we do have world leaders saying to the United States that they will go to diplomatic talks. But the U.S. is like this. Hey, we don't hear that. No one's offering us peace talks. We've talked about this. China has said that they will be our friend and have diplomatic relations. So far, we still kind of have that. Russia has said we will go to negotiation talks. Iran has said we will go to negotiation talks. And the United States is like, no one's in charge. So we don't have to do that. I guess we'll just have war. Here is what Kremlin spokesperson.
Who would we bomb? Right. But who would we bomb if we negotiate peace with everybody? We got all these bombs.
Yeah, and if we don't use them all, then they're not going to give us the same budget next year. They're going to cut the budget.
Yeah. This is the same thing that happened with Noriega, with, Gaddafi. Saddam Hussein, they all offered peace talks. And we said, nope, we're at war. So that's what's happening. Again, here's what Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said. He said, this should be viewed as a certain message, the message that warns these countries of the consequences should they participate in an attack on our country by various means, not necessarily nuclear. So are we sufficiently scared by this, or do we think they're bluffing? Is this a fun game? It's literally Russian roulette. Are we enjoying this?
What was that? Do you ever see Tombstone with Kurt Russell?
No.
Where he's aiming a gun at a guy, and he's bluffing, and Ike is like, oh, he's not bluffing. Like, they're not bluffing. Russians are not bluffing at this point. I mean, like, we've backed them into a corner, and they have no choice but to defend themselves.
Yeah. You know, I was talking to my daughter's dance studio owner, and she's like, I really don't care who's orange, who ate what for lunch. I don't want to talk about the culture wars. I just don't want to get killed by a nuclear bomb. Yeah. Like, this is one of the main issues she will vote on. And I'm with you, girl. I don't want to get killed by a nuclear bomb either. I would like some diplomacy. Speaking of diplomacy, because we're here again, this is the same situation as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Did you know that when that happened, Kennedy ordered a direct phone line between Washington and the Kremlin after the Cuban Missile Crisis? Does it still work? Maybe someone wants to pick it up, or do we have email or somebody's text? Can we send a WhatsApp? Can we send a telegram? Any way to do this, you guys? Because Kennedy did that so that we would never get this close to destroying the planet again. But I guess nobody really wanted to learn that lesson, or maybe that's why they killed him. I don't know. I'm reminded of this quote by Prime Minister of England, former Prime Minister, long deceased, Winston Churchill, who once said, Americans can always be trusted to do the right thing once all other possibilities have been exhausted. So are we at the second part of that sentence now? We're just going through all the other possibilities before we get through diplomacy, and maybe at the last minute we'll get there because we have some humanity. Please God, how long until we've exhausted all the other possibilities before we get to do the right thing and negotiate like human beings? Let us know what you think of this in the chat. So,
if you suffer from daily pain, I need you to listen to this message very carefully. What we know about pain relief is changing forever. As we age, aches and pains are normal, and we're all searching for effective ways to relieve pain without side effects and addiction. Let's be frank, we've all seen the horrors of the opioid crisis. You may even be affected personally. Your family might know someone that has been affected by this. That's where a pioneering medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. You may have seen the world-renowned health expert featured in the national media. He's unveiled a natural pain reliever that has taken the world by storm. And I'm talking about Canoladine, the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous pills. As you read this right now, Canoladine has become the go-to pain reliever for over 1 million Americans, hundreds of professional athletes. It was even named as the UFC's #1 official pain reliever for the UFC. Right now, you guys can try it. Go to trykano.com/redacted, and you're going to get it for less than $1 per day. You can access the only Canoladine product in the world for less than $1 per day. Clint has provided this special link for you guys. You can guys get this special discount. Just go to trykano.com/redacted. I see a bunch of people in the chat who've already ordered this. Give it a shot. If you suffer from chronic pain, you don't want to have that addiction from drugs, try kano.com/redacted, the 100% drug-free Canoladine. Try it for less than $1 a day.